My name is Bella Monroe. I'm 33 and I live in Seattle. And that night, beneath the crystal chandeliers of the Westmere Hotel, with velvet smooth violins playing, I stood in a moment that should have been the peak of happiness, but turned into something entirely different. And it was our 7th wedding anniversary celebration, mine and Alex Monroe's. He's the man people in West Coast real estate circles call the Golden Gentleman. I had spent 3 months planning that evening. Every detail was perfect. Ivory linen tablecloths, Vua Roederer 2006 champagne served in Baccarat crystal flutes, a live band playing our first dance song, La Vie en Rose. I thought I was living in a romantic film until Alex's phone buzzed right in front of me. He was beaming, raising a toast with a few business partners, and casually placed his phone on the table beside his untouched dessert. On instinct, I reached to silence it, but the screen lit up, and I saw it. A photo. Burgundy lingerie, soft lighting blurred across pale skin, and below it a message. I can't wait for our private meeting tomorrow morning. Sent by Zoe. Zoe Parker, the 25-year-old assistant who had been promoted from temp secretary to project manager just 3 months ago. She had those faux grateful wide eyes and a runway walk she brought to the office every day. I had once told myself I was just being paranoid, that Alex was a devoted husband. The same man who always called me the foundation of his success. But that photo felt like a slap. No, like a blade, shoved straight through the trust I had given him for 7 years. I didn't make a scene. I just sat still, smiling like the perfect wife at the perfect party. Because I knew, right in that moment, that what I needed wasn't outrage. It was precision. Quietly, I pulled out my own phone. Ever since our first year of marriage, Alex insisted on syncing all our devices to keep work streamlined. A habit he once called honest and transparent. Now it became the very tool that confirmed this wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a system of betrayal. Their texts went back nearly a year. A rendezvous in New York while I was caring for my hospitalized mother. A late-night meeting at Lakewood Resort, the one I had offered to attend and he declined. Round-trip tickets for his private assistant to a Miami conference? While I was home cleaning up storm damage. 3 minutes later, I accessed the hotel ballroom's presentation system. I had personally worked with the technician 2 weeks ago to set it up. One password, one chance. A slideshow was playing our wedding photos, me in lace, Alex whispering to me in the redwoods. Everyone watched as he picked up the mic ready to speak. All it took was a tap. I selected the right file. The photo Zoe sent, and her message, appeared across the nearly 10-foot wide LED screen, directly behind Alex. I looked up just as he raised his glass. Then it slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. Gasps echoed around the room. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, there's a message too." I stayed in my seat, my hand still resting on the phone. I didn't blink, and when Alex turned toward me, panic flooding his eyes, I simply tilted my head. The champagne flute shattered into hundreds of tiny shards across the marble floor. The burgundy lingerie photo of Zoe remained plastered across the LED screen behind Alex, the bold white text below it. "Can't wait for our private meeting tomorrow morning." Only hushed murmurs followed, then the sound of phones snapping photos. All eyes turned toward me. I rose slowly, adjusting the strap of my off-shoulder gown that had slipped down my arm. Each step I took echoed sharply through the silent space as I approached the podium, where Alex stood frozen. He stammered, eyes darting between the screen and me. As I reached his side, scattered sounds filled the room. Heels clicking, chairs scraping, someone inhaling sharply as if choking. With the mic in hand, I turned toward the crowd, meeting their eyes without flinching. City officials, regional bank directors, and more than a few familiar faces who'd once invited us to dinner, who'd called me the model wife. I spoke, calm and steady, as if introducing a new dessert. "Apologies for the unexpected interruption, but it seems my husband's personal assistant has already scheduled tomorrow morning's meeting for me." A few murmurs turned into awkward chuckles, not because it was funny, but because no one knew what else to do. Some turned away. Others stared like waking from a daze. There he was, silent, trembling, unable to lift his head. Oh, and by the way, that lingerie, bought with our shared credit card, $780 from La Sedouire on Madison Avenue. Coincidentally, the same week Alex claimed he was attending a real estate conference in Austin, but the receipt shows it was delivered to room 915 at the Crescent Moon Hotel, a room I didn't book. Alex suddenly snatched the mic. Bella, this isn't what you think. This is all my fault, but you can't do this in front of everyone. I tilted my head slightly, smiling, not out of forgiveness but out of pure familiarity with that kind of deflection. Oh, I think it's exactly what I think, Alex. And if you're embarrassed, maybe you should have thought about that before texting your little rendezvous plans while your wife was ordering floral arrangements for this very party. The entire ballroom erupted. A woman yanked her shawl over her daughter's eyes. A board member spilled his wine. The same people who once toasted to our love now pulled out their phones and started recording. Alex stepped closer to me, whispering urgently, "Are you insane? You're destroying both of our careers." I took a step back. There was no warmth left in my eyes, only a cold emptiness that sank to the bone. "It's not ours anymore, Alex. You did this. You face it." At that moment, the hotel's tech manager rushed onto the stage, saying something quickly to a staff member in the back. The LED screen went dark, replaced by the Westmere Hotel logo. But it was too late. Everything had been recorded. I walked off the stage, passing through the stunned stares of the guests. Some stood abruptly, others pretended to be on phone calls. A few, like the mayor's wife, looked at me with a mix of shock and respect. The past stayed behind me, right where it belonged. Just as I reached the lobby, I heard Alex's footsteps behind me. He caught up, grabbing my wrist beneath the crystal chandeliers. "Bella, please, we need to talk." It pulled my hand away. Calm. Firm. "I have nothing to say. And if you touch me again, I'll let hotel security handle it." Alex froze, his face flushed red, whether from anger or shame I couldn't tell. "You'll regret this. You don't know what I'm capable of." I held his stare without blinking. "I didn't know you were capable of that either, but now I do, and I'll respond accordingly." I pulled out my phone, walking as I typed. To Attorney Evelyn. Subject, urgent, begin execution. I didn't go home. Alex's Tesla was still parked right in front of the hotel. It made me let out a bitter laugh. Just this morning he'd said we should arrive together. Looks better that way. All of it, a performance. I walked to the main road and called a car to the Ashton Hotel, the one where I hosted a spring seminar last year. The receptionist recognized me instantly and said a suite with a Space Needle view was still available. I nodded without hesitation. When the door closed behind me, I finally exhaled for the first time since leaving the ballroom. Just silence. Away from the crowd, away from Alec. I took off the navy silk dress. The one I'd chosen carefully because he once said I looked like a Hitchcock leading lady in that color. I hung it neatly, then sat by the window and opened my laptop. It was my laptop. But the iCloud account was still synced with Alex's devices. His idea when we got married. So there are no secrets between us, Bella, and now there weren't. But the one exposed wasn't me. I accessed the secondary email Alex used to communicate with his legal team. That address hadn't appeared in recent meetings. He thought I'd forgotten. I hadn't. A folder labeled Hold Pending popped up. I clicked. It asked for a password. A vague memory returned. Our wedding day. Alex whispering, October 8. Our forever code. I typed 1008. Bella. I opened. Dozens of emails appeared, sorted chronologically. I clicked the most recent. Sent 2 weeks ago. A divorce agreement draft, proposing an unequal division of assets. I read carefully. He had it all planned. His own lawyer, an exit strategy post-merger with an investment group in Texas. The final note left me numb. Bella will be fine. She's not confrontational. She might push back at first, but she'll comply to avoid damaging her public image. Not a threat. Not a threat? I clicked another email. It was marked confidential with a PDF attachment. Its contents stopped me cold. A list of 3 women who had worked under Alex in the past 5 years, all quietly gone, no formal reasons. But the PDF contained NDA contracts. Strict confidentiality clauses, each tied to a payout from a special employee support fund, an internal account I had once approved while working with the PR department. I had signed the budget. I had unknowingly funded my husband's misconduct. Another internal chat snippet was attached. Zoe's handling it well, knows how to keep her mouth shut. Just make sure she doesn't stir anything up if Bella finds out. Everything must be wrapped before December, once the Ellison deal closes. I leaned back in the chair staring at the ceiling. The puzzle pieces started to fit. Why Zoe's promotion was so fast, why Alex kept me away from this quarter's financials, why he'd recently changed his email passwords. None of it was random. He was going to use me as a shield, the CEO's wife, the public face in investor meetings. Then once the major deal closed, he'd quietly exit the marriage, with a divorce agreement written entirely on his terms. I closed the laptop, but my head was still buzzing. I reached for my phone, texted Evelyn, my college friend and a divorce attorney well-versed in handling high-profile cases in Seattle. Need to meet tomorrow morning. Urgent. I have proof and documents. It's on. Less than a minute later, Evelyn replied. Bring everything to my office by 8 a.m. and Bella, this time no more mercy. I set the phone down on the table. Outside the glass window, the lights from the top of the Space Needle sliced through the night sky like a sharp streak. At 8 a.m., I sat in the glass-walled office on the 22nd floor of the Bryant Center. Across from me was Evelyn Ross, the sharpest attorney I've ever known, and the only friend I could trust right now. Evelyn didn't say a word for the first 10 minutes. She flipped through each printed page I had brought, opened every file from the USB drive containing synced data from Alex's account. At last her eyes lifted, catching the light on the edges of her square glasses. Bella, if he thought you weren't capable of striking back, then today is the day he made the most catastrophic mistake of his life. The plan was set that very morning. I granted Evelyn full legal authority to represent me, began the process of freezing our joint accounts, traced transactions from the special employee support fund I had once approved, and filed an urgent request to Alex's company's HR department demanding a full breakdown of unexplained expenses from the past 24 months. By noon I returned to the house in the Fremont neighborhood, the one I had called home for the past 5 years. Alex wasn't home yet. I took the opportunity to change every password on the smart locks, the camera system, and revoked his access completely. When it came time to set a new code, I paused for a few seconds, then typed in the date from the day before. 1021, the day I touched the truth. Then I walked into Alex's office. The room was unnaturally tidy, like the forced neatness could somehow hide the chaos inside him. I searched the bottom drawer where he usually kept backup drives. As expected, a small USB in a slim metal case labeled Personal Archive. I plugged it into my laptop and opened the only folder, Legacy. At first, the files inside seemed harmless. Contracts, cover letters, old payrolls, but the deeper I went, the more my stomach tightened. A PDF file named Henderson 2018 Settle caught my eye. Henderson, that was my maiden name. Also the name of the investment firm my father had led as CEO for nearly 2 decades. I opened the file. And I froze. It was an internal settlement report for a harassment complaint filed by a young female employee at my father's company. The accused, a senior partner. The report stated clearly, the behavior crossed professional boundaries. However, in order to preserve reputation and strategic equity, the board has decided to resolve the matter internally via a confidential financial agreement. At the end of the document was my father's signature, Richard Henderson, and below it, an internal note written by Alex to his attorney. The Henderson family link remains beneficial. Marrying Bella has provided a trustworthy public buffer for the brand. If the Henderson 2018 case resurfaces, Bella will take the initial media hit. Maintain tight control. I closed the laptop. My heartbeat thundered in my chest. It wasn't just Alex who had used me. My family had once done the same, as a shield. A sharp knock hit the front glass door. I checked the camera. It was Alex, his face flushed red, pounding the keypad. A hotel security guard stood nearby, clearly uncomfortable. I turned on the speaker system. Bella, open the door. We need to talk. I didn't respond. I hit the record button, phone already tucked in my coat pocket. You can't do this, you're ruining your own reputation. You think the media's going to side with you after you leaked that image? You think anyone will hire an event planner caught in a scandal? He paused for a moment, his tone lowered. Bella, baby, I was wrong. But I love you. I panicked. We can get through this. We've gotten through worse. No reaction, just his voice filling the air while I absorbed it all. If you don't open the door, I'll have to do something I don't want to. You know I could drag your father back into that old scandal. You know Henderson 2018 was never fully buried. And if it comes up, believe me, Bella, you won't just lose your career, the entire Henderson family will fall. I shivered, but not from fear. From rage. I ended the call, then sent the audio recording to Evelyn. Message. He just threatened to expose the Henderson 2018 case. I have the original scanned copy. Prepare the file. A few minutes later, Evelyn replied. Good. We're not just getting a divorce. We're tearing down his whole system. Outside, gray clouds hovered above Seattle, heavy and unmoving. No one could tell, but behind the stillness, a war was coming. 3 weeks after the public reveal at the Westmere, I stood on the small stage at Pine Hill Events Center in downtown Seattle. My hand trembled slightly, but my voice didn't. Thank you all for being here. I'm Bella Monroe, and this is not a press conference. This is the beginning. In front of me sat more than 70 people, mostly women, a few familiar faces from major Seattle firms. Some had once partnered with me on past projects, and in the front row was investigative journalist Claire Donovan from the Seattle Mirror, who had quietly followed the story since the scandal broke. Claire had first approached me after my speech at the Startup Week opening, the one where I had been invited to speak in place of my ex-husband. She said simply, I don't think you're the only one. That one sentence became the reason I launched the Haven Project, an initiative supporting women who face abuse in corporate environments. And today's gathering marked our first official workshop. Just as I finished the opening remarks, 2 women stood up from the back of the room. Their expressions were uneasy, but their eyes didn't waver. One of them spoke. I'm Erin Caldwell. I worked as an executive assistant for Monroe and Rain Partners in 2021, and I'd like to share a story. Erin recounted her time working under Alex. Vague suggestions, weekend work meetings, and eventually a reprimanding email for failing to adapt to company culture, before she was reassigned to logistics. Without explanation. Next was Talia Jensen, a former employee at Rain Partners who was fired after refusing an overnight business trip with Alex and a partner guest. In a room that had gone completely silent, their words cut through the air like knives. I looked around and saw even those who once felt like bystanders now shifting closer to one another. I shared copies of the documents I had gathered, misused invoices from the Employee Support Fund, back-channel emails, and proof that several female staff had been internally reassigned after refusing inappropriate requests. No dramatic speeches were needed. The truth spoke for itself. Claire Donovan, seated in the last row, gave a slight nod. She had published a multi-part exposé titled Behind the Office Glass, a series uncovering cover-ups, soft coercion, and manipulation inside private equity firms. Monroe and Rain Partners was one of the most frequently mentioned. But what made everything escalate was when the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, officially launched an investigation into the company. Evelyn had carefully submitted the financial evidence I had collected, including irregular internal transfers to ambiguous marketing funds. 3 days later, Monroe and Rain's headquarters was temporarily sealed off for investigation. The media flooded the story. The name Alex Monroe was no longer associated with a refined CEO, but with decay masked in polish. What I hadn't expected was how far the story would spread. Major law firms in Seattle began offering pro bono support lines for victims. A top tech company invited me to help design a protection program for female employees. Local universities organized forums where I was asked to speak with graduating business students. I was no longer just a betrayed wife. I had become the start of something bigger, something I didn't yet have a name for. One late afternoon after a panel at the University of Washington School of Law, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. zoeparker.legal@gmail.com. Just one short line. I'm not who you think I am. I need to talk. Not as the other woman. As a victim. I replied. Meet me at Red Elm Cafe Saturday 2 p.m. Just us. No recorders, no press. I arrived 10 minutes early and chose a table tucked in the corner, where sunlight streamed through the window, casting soft lines on the dark wooden table. The cafe was quiet as always, filled only with the hum of the espresso machine and the sweet scent of cinnamon waffles. Zoe walked in right on time. She wore a white shirt, jeans, and no makeup. There was none of the glamorous assistant aura that had once made Alex lose control in the eyes of the world. Her gaze didn't flinch as she sat down. Thank you for coming, Zoe said, her voice raspier than I expected. I know you don't owe me anything. She pulled a USB drive from her bag and placed it on the table. This contains every recording, email, and message he sent me over the past year. Some of it, you don't know. She paused, biting her lip. There are threats, pressure, even clips of him saying, if you don't shut up, you won't just lose your job, you'll lose your future. I stared at the small device. Zoe's hands clenched together. At first, I thought I was special. Then I was afraid. But after seeing you speak up and seeing other women do the same, I knew I couldn't stay silent forever. You're a victim, Zoe. But you were also part of the game that hurt others. Do you understand that? Her chin dipped slightly and her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I just want the truth out, and if possible, I want to stand on the right side of it. I took the USB, slipping it into my purse. She wasn't a rival anymore. Just a young woman searching for her way back to herself. The news broke on a windy Monday morning. Alex Monroe officially removed as CEO of Monroe & Rain Partners. The Seattle Financial ran a photo of him leaving company headquarters, suit disheveled, face vacant, eyes avoiding the cameras. The accompanying article listed everything: harassment allegations, financial misconduct, the SEC investigation, and, most damning, a growing number of former female employees stepping forward. A complete collapse, with nothing left to hide. A week later, I had dinner at my parents' house. Or more accurately, I responded to what felt like a summons from my mother, Margaret Henderson. The meal was prepared with the usual care: Wedgwood china, hand-embroidered linens. But no one touched the roast beef she had made. Do you have any idea how far you're dragging the Henderson name down? My mother said. Her voice was low, but each word cut like a blade. I set my fork down and looked her straight in the eye. Are you referring to the 2018 scandal I discovered in Alex's USB? Or the fact that our family used me as a living shield to protect the company's image? She lifted her head. Her face went pale with rage. Don't be insolent. You think you're noble? What you've done is cause investors to pull out, delay your father's projects, and put the university scholarship fund on pause due to PR concerns. So all you care about is the damage to your reputation? I asked, my voice steady. My father said nothing, staring into his glass as if it held the solution no one could speak. You were Hendersons, Bella, my mother continued. Women in this family know how to handle things internally. We don't put our business on display for the world like some circus act. I rose from my seat. I didn't smear this family's name. This family let the dirt pile so high that all it took was a gust of wind to make it collapse. I walked away from the table without looking back. Later that afternoon, just as I left a strategy meeting with the executive team at the Haven Project, I received a call from an unknown number. A man's voice, deep, polished. Ms. Monroe, this is Ethan Larkin, Managing Director at Larkin & Wells Partners. We met 2 years ago at the Harbor Forum networking event. I paused. Larkin & Wells was a direct rival of Monroe & Rain. They'd competed fiercely with Alex on major deals. I remember. Ethan chuckled softly. I'll be direct. I've followed how you handled everything recently. Very impressive. We're expanding our corporate ethics and compliance division, a space where you're quickly becoming a symbol. I'd like to invite you to lead it. I slowed my steps. The noise of traffic around me faded into the background. Because I'm Alex Monroe's ex-wife? I asked, plain and direct. He paused for a moment, then replied honestly. Because you held your ground when everything around you tried to make you retreat. And because you understand what happens when corporate ethics only exist on paper. No university teaches that. I'll think about it, I said. Don't take too long, systems need people like you. So does this society. He hung up. But the echo of that call lingered in me like a breath of fresh air. 2 days later I received an email from the Westmere Hotel, the very place where Alex had dropped his champagne glass the night the truth came out. Subject line: on behalf of the management team, a collaboration invitation. It was a formal request for me to plan the Westmere Winter Gala, the hotel's most prestigious event of the year, attended by Seattle's financial, media, and political elite. The reason? We need someone with not just event expertise but the courage to make a statement, and the name Bella Monroe now means more than just a surname. I reread that last line, then I clicked accept. I sat back at my desk, looking at 2 offers. One from the Westmere Hotel, one from Larkin & Wells. Both represented the very world that had once wounded me. But this time, I wasn't returning for revenge. I was coming back to redefine how the system worked, with transparency, boundaries, and dignity. I opened my laptop and began a new email. Subject: Val Monroe, ready to rewrite the rules. 6 months after that fateful night at the Westmere, I moved into a small penthouse apartment on the 12th floor of a historic building in Queen Anne, Seattle. White painted brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, and a modest kitchen just right for 2. Not grand, not glamorous like the old mansion, but it was mine. Fully chosen, paid for, and redesigned by me. No more partner meeting rooms. No more curated bookcases for impressing guests. Just morning light, a lavender plant I grew myself, and jazz music I played each night before sleep. I called it starting over without looking back. That Saturday night I hosted a small dinner in my new place. No elaborate decor, just a few bunches of purple tulips, earth-toned porcelain plates, red wine, and lasagna I'd learned to make in a recent cooking class. Evelyn arrived first, polished as always in a cream blazer, holding a raspberry tart. Claire Donovan, journalist from the Seattle Mirror, brought an old bottle of French wine and a thick manuscript. Her investigative series had just been nominated for a National Journalism Award. I hugged her tightly. Zoe came last in a simple black shirt, her eyes brighter than when I'd first seen her again. We didn't need to say much, just held hands. And then Ethan Larkin, in a gray cashmere coat and his quiet, steady smile. He was no longer the intimidating CEO I'd once seen in headlines, but someone who had stood beside me these past months as a mentor. And more. We raised our glasses. No speeches, just quiet recognition. For those who dared to speak up, and for all of us, still standing. 2 weeks later, I stepped into the Westmere Hotel lobby once again. For the first time since that night, but now as the creative director of the Westmere Winter Gala, everything had changed. The ballroom had been redesigned with sleek modern tones, new chandeliers. The LED wall now displayed artistic light patterns only. I walked the hallway, doing a final check before kickoff, and, when I turned around, I saw him. Alex. Thinner. Slightly disheveled hair. A pale gray suit that no longer quite fit, but his eyes were familiar. The ones that once made me feel chosen, loved. He walked over, stopping at a respectful distance. You're doing well. Better than well, it seems? I'm doing fine, thank you. He paused, eyes unreadable, and slipped a folded envelope from his pocket. This is an apology. On paper, nothing official. Just what I should have said long ago. Alex, I don't need an apology. The only thing I ask is that you leave the other victims alone, and if you have any shred of decency left, cooperate with the investigations. He pressed his lips together, his voice dropped low. You've changed, Bella. I let the moment linger, studying the face I once thought I knew. No. I've just been rinsed clean of the dust you and men like you tried to bury me under. The gala went smoothly. Guests were pleased, the media covered it widely. But for me the most memorable moment was standing alone on the balcony, looking out at the city sparkling below. No longer afraid of being watched, no longer bracing for betrayal or being cast aside or used. I was the one who redefined myself from the ruins. My story isn't just about divorce or a corporate scandal. It's the journey of standing back up after truth was twisted, after dignity was cheapened and trust shattered. I am no longer a woman living in someone else's shadow. I'm the one who stepped into the light, set new boundaries and rewrote my own worth. And if there's one thing I've learned through it all, it's this. Rebirth begins with the courage to say, enough. What do you think of Bella's choice and the way she rose above it all? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow this channel for more powerful, heartfelt stories about family, marriage, and starting over.